diversity and neglected and overlooked other key ingredients. First, unity premised on these partial components and with all the attendant political, economic, and social implications will always be fragile and unsustainable. Second, insistence and persistence on identifying one religion with the state and thereby establishing a theocratic state has led and will only lead to serious risk in the fabric of the Sudanese society and eventual disintegration of the country. For not only are all Sudanese not Muslims, but even among Muslims themselves, there is no consensus on the Sharia law or laws. 1.2.3, concentration and centralization of power. Power has been a monopoly of a few in Khartoum, irrespective of the guise they assume, leaders of political parties, members of family, dynasties, imams of religious sects, or army officers. Representation of Southerners and other marginalized groups in the central governments has always been symbolic and without their participation in the government formation process. They were invited to join national governments as hangers and not equal state. And power has been centralized in Khartoum without meaningful devolution to the regions, even when a federal system was adopted. 1.2.4, a vicious circle of change in government, whereby authoritarian military regimes and intervals of pluralistic parliamentary systems followed on the heels of each other, with the military seizing power for 80% of the time since independence, entrenched itself. Democracy as practiced in the old Sudan has a sham procedural democracy that has a camouflage for the perpetuation of vested interest. In that sham democracy, civil rights were subject to the whims of rulers. The majority of Sudan's regions remained peripheral to the central power and were treated as expendable appendages, only to be manipulated through political trickery and double dealings. This political instability is mainly due to the undemocratic nature of the ruling parties and the failure of the parliamentary system in striking the correct balance between political democracy and the economic and cultural democracy. 1.2.5, women have remained the marginalized of the marginalized, whose suffering defies description and whose political rights of equality with men are largely unrecognized. Women in the old Sudan are subjected to triple oppression based on ethnicity, socio-economic status, and their gender. Patriarchal oppression is embedded in the economic, social, religious, cultural, family, and other relations in all Sudanese communities. 1.2.6, misguided foreign policy was to a large measure informed by the ideological pre-elections of ruling or political active groups, Arab nationalists, communists, and of late Islamists. As a result, national interest was identified with the Sudan with small, an exclusively Arabic, Islamic, or politically aligned state. The national interest of the Sudan large was thus subsumed in broader external agendas without due regard to genuine national interest. 1.2.7, uneven and unequal development has resulted in the irrational use of the country's vast resources and various forms of marginalization, both on ethnic and class basis, including marginalization of women, impoverishment, deprivation, and unequal distribution of wealth, and the fruits growth to regions and people of Sudan. This, in addition to a skewed pattern of access to and distribution of basic social services to the disadvantage of the poor and marginalized, both in the rural areas and the major urban centers. 1.2.8 serious environmental implications have resulted in the pursuit of this development paradigm and have rendered that development unsustainable. The wanton use of resources, of natural resources, poses a serious threat to the natural environment, especially rural areas, in a manner that may lead to the total collapse of the rural economy. Besides, the degeneration of the environment is behind conflicts on marginal grazing lands all across Sudan, all over Sudan, and especially in the southern and western parts of the country. And as if the untold suffering and human losses were not enough, war also had its toll on the environment. Destruction of wildlife, protected areas, and endangered species. Petroleum exploration, despite the economic benefits it's generated, also came with its own environmental problems. Pollution of land and water, removal of forests, oil spills on fragile lands. So did the haphazard urbanization in the main cities, particularly the national capital, leading to an overload on existing amenities and unresolved problems of waste management. 2, the rise and evolution of the SPLM. 2.1, the SPLM origin. The formation of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement is a continuation of the past struggles of the Sudanese people before, during, and after colonialism. The rise of the SPLA in 1983 was a translation and a continuation of the long-standing political discontent into an armed conflict. The result of the SPLA to armed struggle was informed by the early armed struggles against repression and presented a continuation of them after they had been temporarily halted by colonialism and later by the Addis Ababa Agreement, which stopped civil war in southern Sudan for a short while from 1972 to 1983. 2.1.2, resistance has been the natural reaction of the oppressed and marginalized peoples of the Sudan against the various Khartoum-based governments. The resistance took different forms according to the prevailing circumstances. In the cities and urban centers, it took the form of popular uprisings from 1964 and 1985, while in the marginalized areas, especially of southern Sudan, southern Kordofan, and southern Blue Nile, the resistance took the form of popular and patriotic army struggle, 1955 to 73, 1983 to 2005. The birth and formation of the SPLA in 1983 was therefore not an isolated incident, but rather a culmination and continuation of the struggles of the Sudanese people. 2.1.3, however, in reaction to numerous machinations and consistent attempt at unilaterally Malaysia, I'm Malaysia, Jama. I'm here with another Aparak who wanted me to attend to. So let's continue. 2.1.3. However, in reaction to Nimeri's machination and the consistent attempts at unilaterally dismantling the Addis Ababa Accord, the Akobo Mutiny of 1975 inevitably followed. Elements of this mutiny, combined with some of the dismissed ex-Anyanya 1 soldiers and officers, to form what became known as Anyanya 2 in Upper Nile. Later on, and mainly in 1982, armed resistance under the same name but with a different command sprang up in Bahr al-Ghazal. Furthermore, prominent Anyanya officers who were absorbed in the Sudanese army continued to organize within that army in order to form or to transform the situation by either attacking and capturing Juba or withdrawing to the bushes to wage a protracted army struggle. But Khartoum seized the initiative and attacked Bo and Pibor garrison on 16th of May 1983. Later, the Ayyut garrison attacked Khartoum forces that were sent to arrest its ex-Anyanya commander. This was the spark. This was the spark that lit the tinderbox. 2.1.4. Simultaneously, the military moves prominent southern politicians and students organized several underground organizations to mobilize the masses against the dismantling of the agreement. These opposition bodies included the National Action Movement, NAM for short, Movement for Total Liberation of Southern Sudan, MTLSS in short, Jawama, African People's Organization, JAPO, Council for the Unity of Southern Sudan, and South Sudan Liberation Front, which actually started a guerrilla war in 1982 and came into the limelight in July 1983 when it seized a number of foreigners in Boma Post. 1.1.5. By early 1983, the necessary conditions had combined a revolutionary situation. The battles of Bo, commanded by Major Carbino Kwanyin Bol, Pibor, commanded by Captain Riek Mokpoch, and Ayyut, commanded by Major William Nwanpai, caused desertions in other units of Southern Command and Northern Sudan. This drove students and other civilians en masse to join the army struggle, which resulted in the exodus of refugees into neighboring countries, especially Ethiopia. 2.1.6. Elements of the political and military organization and officers referred to early united and founded the Sudan People's Liberation Army and the Sudan People's Liberation Movement. Although the SPLM emerged to continue the army struggle waged by early movements, it saw the resolution of Sudan's crisis differently from the way they did. SPLM believes that Sudan's salvation lies in the solution of both the national groups and religious questions within the context of a united, democratic, and secular Sudan. Thus, although the SPLM started by necessity in the South, it eventually aims at spreading its message all over the Sudan, thus transform the whole country. 2.2. The SPLM departure from the thinking paradigm of the old Sudan. 2.2.1. It dawned on the SPLM leadership that marginalization in all its forms, discrimination, injustice, and subordination constitute the root causes of the conflict that cannot be addressed in a piecemeal fashion through dishing out handouts and concessions to the disgruntled and rebellious groups whenever a conflict erupted in a particular region. Sudanese have problems everywhere, in the west, in the east, in the center, and even in the far north. The later outbreak of the armed struggle or armed conflicts and wars in eastern and western Sudan has vindicated the correctness and far-sightedness of this analysis and vision. Defining the problem as the southern problem is in itself a marginalized. Let's continue. Defining the problem as the southern problem is in itself an attempt at marginalizing Southerners. It is not the problem of the South, as conventionally advocated by the successive ruling regimes in Khartoum, but rather the problem of the Sudan, particularized in the South. In contradictions from the various secessionist movements, the SPLM advocating the liberation of the whole Sudan and not only South Sudan. 2.2.2, this shift of paradigm also marks a radical departure from the traditional struggle in South for independence. This is what it has always been since 1955 when the Anyanya War started. The avowed objective was the independence of the South. This objective was not achieved. It was compromised in 1972 in the Addis Ababa Agreement when Southern Sudan was given local autonomy. The SPLM moved away from this paradigm of the Southern problem, solving the Southern problem and what to give to Southerners. When you are defined as the others, as sometimes different through references to Southern problem, for instance, that is in itself a problem, i.e. the people who have a problem are the Southerners. But this is not true. It is the Sudanese state, epitomized by the power structure in the center, which needs to be radically structured in order to accommodate the Sudan's manifold diversity and attend to all forms of exclusion and marginalization of its people, be they in the South or in any other marginalized region. The fish rots from the head, not from the tail. 2.3, SPLM overcoming challenges and contradictions of the struggle. 2.3.1, the SPLM's grand objective of bringing about radical and fundamental change in the Sudan as a whole was not a dream, but an objective that was premised on the victories and setbacks of the Sudanese people and on the correct and visionary definition of the central problem of the Sudan. Since its inception, the SPLM critically and objectively analyzed the Sudanese reality and concluded that we must struggle for a new type of Sudan to which we all belong, a united Sudan, albeit on the new basis. A new Sudan political dispensation that is anchored in and based on the realities of the Sudan, on both our historical and contemporary diversities. We call this new political compensation the new Sudan, as opposed to the old Sudan, which has cost us 42 years of war since independence. 2.3.2. On the other hand, however, this does not mean that there was no skeptics within the ranks of the movement. So far as the new Sudan vision is concerned, there are and have always been differences. In fact, disagreements have occurred, degenerating into violent confrontations and various historical junctions in the evolution of the SPLM-SPLA. Thus, the vision of the new Sudan and the adoption of objectives and programs consistent with it had its share of difficulties and troubles in the early days of the movement. Some leaders of the SPLM and some Anyanya commanders decided to leave the movement because they wanted to fight for an independent Southern Sudan and not for a new Sudan. However, instead of fighting the Sudan government in order to achieve the objective of independence, they allied themselves with the same government and fought the incipient SPLM-SPLA for 4 years. It is true that the phenomenon of divisions and splits is normal given the diversity of vision any political liberation movement. What is unfathomable, however, is the collaboration with the enemy of the people. The lesson to draw from this experience is that the self-professed separatists should not be allowed to shout empty slogans without separation, thus misinforming our people. They should concretely explain to the people how they plan to achieve the objectives of separation. The SPLM emerged victorious and continued to grow in might and moral, and the SPLA firmly established itself as an indisputable, decisive political and military force in the Sudanese political arena. 2.3.3, the advent of the 1990s witnessed the collapse of the Eastern Bloc countries and the end of the Cold War, and this marked a world transition from one historical era to the new one. At the same time, many profound changes occurred in East Africa region. Notably, these were the collapse of the government of Mengistu Haile Mariam in Ethiopia, the emergence of the Eritrea as an independent country or state, and the disintegration of Somalia. The cumulative effects of all these regional and international events, especially the loss of the support from Mengistu's Ethiopia, accompanied by an opportunistic attempt by the NIF regime and other foreign circles to destroy the SPLA in 1991, led some to believe wrongly that the movement had been weakened by the loss of the Ethiopian support, and this in turn led to the split of the SPLM in August 28, 1981. 2.3.4, the split caused the people of the Sudan, especially in the south, incalculable harm and suffering, and retarded the march of the SPLM to victory. It divided the movement at a time of regional and international turmoil when unity was needed most, as well as dividing the people along tribal lines, inciting Southerners against each other, resulting in the death of untold numbers of innocent civilians. On the other hand, the NIF effectively used the split, both militarily and politically, in its war against the SPLA. Besides, the 1981 episode led many Northerners to wonder whether the SPLA was abandoning its long-held objectives of the New Sudan, while Southerners started to have doubts about the SPLM strategy and fears as to whether the movement really had their interests at heart. This confusion and fear was sufficiently addressed through open debate and subsequent resolutions during the first SPLA National Convention. 2.3.5, the SPLM convened its first national convention in the period between 2nd to 12th April 1994 with the objective of debating all issues of concern to the movement and its future direction, especially in the aftermath of the split of 1981. The convention correctly addressed the issue of self-determination as a people's choice or people's rights that does not contradict the SPLM objective of a united democratic New Sudan, but on the contrary, enhances it. Indeed, correctly perceived, the New Sudan can only be achieved through the mechanism of self-determination, i.e., through the free will of the Sudanese people. 2.3.6, the ensuing debate during the convention thereafter reaffirmed the fact that the realization of the vision of the New Sudan brought about either through a combination of armed struggle and urban popular uprisings or a politically negotiated settlement is the key for the attainment of freedom, equality, and justice for the Sudanese people. We cannot achieve our aim, whether this is the New Sudan, right of self-determination or separation, only if power is radically restructured in the center, in Khartoum. It is unthinkable that the regime will voluntarily relinquish power or be forced by international oppressions to grant separation on a silver plate. It was thus decided in unequivocal terms that the establishment of the New Sudan and the achievement of the right skeptical about the New Sudan vision are not confined to the SPLM membership. There are those, particularly in the northern Sudan, who condemned outrightly the vision merely because it came from a source unfamiliar to their minds and hearts. Most importantly, there are forces that benefited and continue to benefit from the old Sudan. They are well aware that the new Sudan is a threat to their interest, be they in power or in opposition. These forces are thus bent on propagating a distorted image of both the vision and the SPLM, thus misleading and frightening away their respective constituencies by insisting that the new Sudan is a mere euphemism for an African, Christian, anti-Arab, and Islamic entity, which in collaboration with Zionism is intent on doing away with the Arab-Islamic identity of the Sudanese, the North in particular. Such unfounded suspicions, fueled by racism and religious bigotry, have been adequately responded to elsewhere and would not stand the test of time. Contrary to what the critics and skeptics think, the concept of the new Sudan has no racial, ethnic, or separatist connotations. It is rather a framework, a national project for building a true and sustainable citizenship state capable of accommodating the multiple diversities of Sudanese society. Above all, the concept is an intellectual and scholarly contribution to the unfolding political discourse on the rebuilding of the Sudanese state. 3. The vision of the SPLM. Vision of the SPLM. Just bear with me. 3.1. Articulation of the vision. The vision of the SPLM is therefore that of the new Sudan. This vision is consistent with how nations are formed. The Sudan is no exception. In the Sudan, people have moved in time and space and have become part of the Sudanese nation. And the character and identity of this nation must be based on its reality, on its historical and contemporary diversity, not on misconceptions or distorted designs of anybody who grabs power in Khartoum. 3.1.2. Without a sincere appreciation of these realities, phrases like nation building and national unity become empty slogans. Indeed, the concept and reality of the state or nation state becomes a fractured and degenerates into a mechanism for enabling some of the most notorious and unprincipled members of the local elite and power seekers, masquerading as nationalists, to seize and retain political power, and then proceed to pillage and render the people of the so-called national state destitute. 3.1.3. Voluntary unity in the new Sudan is therefore conditioned on creating a political and socio-economic commonality that brings all Sudanese together as equal citizens in rights and obligations. We must clearly move away from the parameters of the old Sudan of racism, religious intolerance, historical myopia, and the associated economic collapse, instability, and wars. The old Sudan has clearly taken us to a dead end, to the edge of the abyss. 3.1.4. There are two and only two choices. Either the country breaks up into several independent states, or we agree to establish the new Sudan. A new Sudanese socio-political entity to which we pledge our undivided loyalty and allegiance, irrespective of race, tribe, religion, or gender. A new Sudanese commonality that seeks to include rather than exclude. A new Sudanese political dispensation that provides equal opportunities for every Sudanese to develop and realize his or her potential. Sudan where there is justice and equality of opportunity for all. A democratic Sudan in which governance is based on popular will and the rule of law. A new Sudan where religion and the state are constitutionally separated. A new Sudan in which oppression and hegemony by any particular ethnic are vanished. A Sudan in which all the institutions of social, racial, and cultural hegemony and discrimination are dismantled. A Sudan in which there is respect for universal human rights. 3.1.5. The new Sudan is not the antithesis of the old Sudan, nor does the vision imply the complete destruction of the old Sudan and building the new Sudan on its ashes. The construction of the new Sudan is rather a transformative process for fundamental socio-economic change and political restructuring that will build on all the positive elements of the old Sudan, informed by all our historical and contemporary experiences and cognizant of the equipped for the enormous challenges of the 21st century. It is the responsibility of the SPLM and other forces of change, particularly in the North, to utilize the most refined and positive components of their respective experiences in their effort to lead the transformation process into the new Sudan. 3.1.6. The national crisis that has been afflicting the Sudan since independence is essentially a crisis of leadership reflected in the social nature of the successive ruling elites, namely their narrow social-based, constricted intellectual outlook, backward political values, poor imagination, isolation from the people, and disdain of the humanist ideals. Thus, these elites have failed in developing the country and resorted to express their parochial interest by adopting divisive policies and using state power in promoting and defending Arabism and Islam, which resulted in a crisis of identity and exacerbated the crisis of nation building. This crisis of identity is manifested in the inability of the Sudanese to reconcile themselves with the cultural and ethnic realities that make of them a nation. 3.1.7. The vision of the new Sudan, thus, is essentially a national framework, a socio-economic and political commonality anchored in and accommodative of the country's multiple diversities. The essence of the vision is the equitable management of diversity and respect for the identities and cultures of all national groups. Though the Sudan constitute the base and focus on vision, the context could apply globally to countries and regions torn apart by racial, ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity and disparity. As is the case in Africa, the majority of continents, nations, states are mosaics of multifarious nationalities and cultures. The unity of those states hinges on the recognition of and respect for their multiple diversities and presupposes pulling together the common strengths that unite them. 11.2. Normative framework of the vision. 3.2.1. The crisis does not lie in the mere definition of the Sudanese identity, but rather in the implications of the distorted self-perception of the ruling elites in the center in terms of participation in the shaping and sharing of power, access to wealth, resources, services, employment, and development opportunities. 3.2.2. Corrective measures are therefore required to promote an inclusive sense of belonging on the part of all Sudanese as citizens who enjoy all the rights of citizenship on equal footing. 3.2.3. While identities cannot be legislated and racially transformed overnight, a constitutional framework of equality can be enshrined with immediate effect and could, over time, allow an inclusive national identity to evolve. 3.2.4, the normative framework of the stipulated New Sudan emanates from the correction of the ills of the old Sudan, as outlined above. It presupposes a united democratic and secular Sudan, a constitutionally, economically, and culturally restructured or reconstructed Sudan. The founding notions of the vision for the polity, society, culture, and economy of the new Sudan are, number one, evolving a Sudanese identity reflective of the Sudan's multi-ethnic and multicultural character. Two, building unity on the country. Building unity of the country on the totality of the components that make up Sudan's historical and contemporary diversities, and separating religion from state. Three, restructuring of power in the center and decentralization of power by redefining the relationship between Khartoum and the regions and devolving more powers to the region. Number four, fostering democratic governance in which equality, freedom, economic and social justice, and respect for human rights are not mere slogans, but concrete realities. And then finally, promoting environmentally and event sustainable development. Four, the new Sudan, polity, culture, and society and economy. 4.1, guided and informed by the vision of the new Sudan and using all legitimate peaceful means at its disposal, the SPLM shall continue to struggle to build a new social political order that is based on the total commitment to the Bill of Rights, decentralized governance, political pluralism, respect of the edicts on human and people's rights established by international covenants, and an economic system that afford the individual an atmosphere and opportunities conducive to self-realization. That system should also equip marginalized regions to overcome uneven development and create an environment for the healthy growth of the private sector. Human dignity and respect for the individual and the family must be asserted as the essential foundation of the new Sudan. All individuals have a right to freedom, prosperity, and security. The state is no more than a tool. The state is no more than a tool to attain these goals. Prosperity for all. 4.2. We aim to establish a society of equal opportunities based on the principles of social justice and social solidarity of the strong and weak. In other words, as well as the release of private initiative, a robust system of social support is a crucial condition for the existence of a free society in the new Sudan. A free society can only be created in a stable political system that rules out all abuse and presupposes the state's active role in maintaining economic order in order to achieve prosperity for everyone. The state must regulate the free market to attain social objectives and not try to coerce it to realize such goals. The market is not an aim in itself, but rather a means of securing freedom and sufficiency for all citizens of New Sudan. Freedom, justice, and equality. 4.3. In the New Sudan, freedom of people is paramount and sacrosanct. It has the same absolute value as human life. The people of Sudan, particularly in the marginalized areas of the country, have suffered enough for their rights to freedom. Only a free New Sudan can assure the prosperity and security of its citizens and enable the country to develop dynamically in the 21st century. Freedom cannot survive in a society that does not strive for justice. Such a society is doomed to division between whose freedom is backed by material wealth and those whose freedom implies merely a state of devastating poverty. Such a division may result either in social upheavals or a dictatorship of the privileged minority. Justice demands that we strive not only for equal rights for citizens, but also for equal opportunities so that the individual can realize his or her worth. Justice should also guarantee a worthy existence for the less fortunate. 4.4. Equality of rights cannot be meaningful without political, economic, and social empowerment of women, especially leading to gender equality in the executive, legislature, judiciary, and other domains of society and polity. This in turn calls for the elimination through legislation of all manifestations and consequences of patriarchy, from the feminization of poverty, physical and psychological abuse, undermining of self-confidence, to open and hidden forms of exclusion from positions of authority and power. Critical in this regard is the creation of the material and cultural conditions that would allow the abilities of women to flourish and enrich the life of the nation. This would entail transforming customary law and social practices that deny women and children their human rights. 4.5. Affirmative action in favor of women should continue and will only decline in the same measure as all centers of powers and influence and other critical species in social endeavor become broadly representative of the country's demographics. In the process, all inequalities that may persist or arise will need to be addressed. 4.6. Youth. A nation's success depends on its ability to encourage, harness, and incorporate into its endeavors the creativity, the daring, and energy of youth. This relates to such issues as access to social and economic opportunities, engendering activism around issues of development and values of community solidarity, and creating the space for the creativity of youth to flourish. 4.7. Children and the elderly. The New Sudan society should ensure the protection and continuous advancement of children and the elderly as the most vulnerable in the society. 4.8. People with special needs. Such is the challenge also with regard to the need to address the problems of the people with disability, not merely as a matter of social welfare, but rather should be based on the recognition of the right of each individual to dignity and development, and of the contribution that each can make to the collective good. Democratic governance. 4.6. Democracy is vital and an imperative for the New Sudan. The democratic cause in the New Sudan is therefore based on a revision of the sham procedural democracy of the past. The transformation of Sudan envisaged by the SPLM thus represents a political and socio-economic paradigm shift from hegemony in all its form to the recognition of Sudan's political, cultural, and social diversity within a framework of a vibrant multi-party democracy and a meaningful Bill of Rights that recognizes and upholds natural as well as political, socio-economic, cultural, and environmental rights and obligations. That democracy should also ensure peaceful transfer of power and separation of powers among the executive, judiciary, and legislative organs of the state. Beyond the formal processes of regular elections and legislatures, various forms of legalize and other forms to ensure popular participation shall be initiated and encouraged. Equally, The democracy engendered by this transformation shall be predicated on a social content which includes awareness of and attention to the needs of poor and economically disadvantaged individuals and groups, primarily with respect to healthcare, education, employment, and social safety nets. 4.10, a decentralized system of governance that will bring power closer to the people and is characterized by popular participation, transparency, accountability, responsiveness, consensus seeking orientation, fairness, effectiveness, and abidance by the rule of law, so that the people of New Sudan are provided with the necessary conducive environment for accelerated socio-economic development and increased happiness. 4.11. This system of governance will be premised on a restructuring of the power of central government in a manner that would take into account the interests of all the Sudanese, especially those of marginalized regions and the impoverished socio-economic groups, and a decentralized power structure by redefining the relation between Khartoum and the regions with a view to devolving more federal powers to the regions and where and when necessary, full autonomy. That form of regionalism should enable the masses, not the regional elites, to exercise real power in the fields of economic and social development and the promotion of their respective cultures. Devolution of power shall be incomplete if it does not equally empower local government to fully exercise the power entrusted to them by the Constitution and the law without obstruction from any center of power in the states. 4.12, good governance, where the exercise of political, economic, and administrative authority in the management of the country's affairs at all levels shall be people-based, so that individuals and groups have an effective say in the allocation and management of the resources and in decisions that affect their lives. Field Marshals and the rest of you, I think what Big Mountain said before is true. I think I will pause here for a while so that I give you the chances, because the document here is very long. It's very long, so I would like to take a break and then to see reactions from you in terms of participation.
No, we are here. I think we're waiting for
comrades.
We're
You want
waiting
me to
for.
continue?
No. I think you can pause it there, and thank you for having that lengthy reading. I think you can maybe take a break of 1 hour at least, and maybe do your own sort of preparation there, and then when you come back, maybe you will have enough time, and then the rest of us here, everyone can take like 5 to 7 minutes to highlight what we have, what we can actually discuss, or what we have learned from that, reminding points. So if that's fine, then maybe we can go from there. But if not, we can see the opinion of others. Like Madidja, Mood, Tontat, Diwal, and rest of you. Is that okay to go in that way? I think 10 of us are up here, and that will be enough to be under 1 hour.
Yeah, that is correct. I think the world here, they say they need to highlight for the determination of the SPLM to ally these words to maybe they're going to go to the world. The world, you're still on the phone or you are here?
Yeah, let the one person go, then I will come after that. Yes, Yeah, you can go. You can go. Jim is not sleeping in the daytime. Yeah, great guys. Yeah, a little update. Yeah.
Start your network. Your network is bad.
What about now? Is it still bad?
It's good now. Go ahead.
Yeah. He told me that that the Equatorians themselves are the one going to talk, because in Uganda side they call it a province. So and the people from Kejikeji, the guys know Mayor, the place called Mayor. It's what Uganda claim that their border ended there, because he said that the Equatorian, the Equatorian from the states of that area, and the province Uganda of the area are the ones who are going to talk, and the outcome will rely on those two sides. So now government is behind, and Ugandan government is behind, because Ugandan government and South Sudan government do not know about this tribe, how they were divided, and their ancestors, how they were from side to side and claim the others. So yeah. You still have a problem with network. Sometimes I think if you are driving, say that wait. Sometimes your network is still not. I'm not hearing you perfectly here. Maybe that's my problem. I don't know.
Contact, you have problem with network, sir. Can you fix it first? Contact. The question of the network, we need. Yeah. Go ahead, Marialit. Yeah.
You can go a bit. I will come up to that. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Young Nation, for reading our manifesto, because I'm part of the SPLM, SPLA. In 1983, when the rebellion started, based on the knowledge I know, they are quite put it there. By then I was young, but before the rebellion started in 1983, there was a conversation between the senior officers who were in the government of Sudan, because the peace was signed in 1972, and then in 3 years afterwards, another rebellion started, which is Nyanyatu Afar Nile and Benson. And then they were just lingering there, they did like 7-8 years in the bush without attacking anyone, but they started their rebellion that time. And that was not enough. And then those of Dr. John, those of William Yon, those of Carbino Kwanyin, they gathered in Malakal, those of Nor Makich, and others. Those of late Albino Kolakol, they sat down in Malakal and they said, now we have to start this rebellion, because when the peace, we have to start the rebellion again, because the peace was dishonored by Jafar Mohammed Temeri in 1983, and
Al Salam there is not the Quran, it's not a chapter in the Quran or the verse in the Bible. So I'm going to cancel this one. So he tore the peace agreement and then he put it in the bin here. Okalas. Yeah, if that's what Numeri won, and then now we're going back to square one. We have to go back to rebellion again. So that time, the Southerners were really ready. They were ready. And there were so many reasons which helped SPLA to progress. For instance, the most educated one, they know what Arab did back to South Sudanese, so they were not happy. Most of them, they were aware of the killing of South Sudanese in Juba, in Malakal, in Wau, and different places. That one angered a lot of South Sudanese intellectuals. That's one. Another reason, we from northern side of the country, northern part of, let's say, Barakazar region, most of us, we were so bad terrorized by those called militias, Marhamin or Marahalin. That one caused a lot of problem in our regions. That one also helps the movement to get a lot of the soldiers. If you can see, a lot of young men who come from Iraq, they just join the rebellion because they only just go, they want to go and get the Kalashnikov to come and defend their cows. Then Taman Nas Kawaj Makwe, Nas Bola Yolnum, Nas Ketiba Jamus, when they arrive in Barakazal, Kalas, Nas Lake Bajongwami, and Nas Pagadagot Gal Kalas, Nana Machine Jib Asula, Shanajin Shackle, Ma Musriya Del, because they always come and take our kids, burn our houses, and then take our cows. So we're taking those guns to come and protect our land here. Shufta? But when they reach to build farm, then Torjon Biji Bugul Kalas machine Kurmuk, giving a machine le Malakal, machine le other areas. So that's where SPLA got at least a lot of reinforcement. Yeah. Coming to the other side of the country, because our brothers from the southern part of the country, especially Equatoria, they were cautious because what they did to other southerners, okay, they were just, and then also a lot of them, most of them, not all of them, but some of them, they don't like bullets. They don't like it. That's why they reserve themselves from joining the movement. So when you come to the realities, it's good to come and revise this manifesto, Young Nation, and the mighty Aparak, because Nas Kutara can't guide in to Sudan. They don't know what the SPLM, SPLA manifesto mean. They don't know SPLM was well organized. And then it's even well organized than other rebellions which are happening now in the country today. No Fizo into manifesto, maybe they took a copy from SPLM and then they just go and copy and paste somewhere there and then try to do some changes. Unasa tani ndel into Mushkla, a young denomination there, then that's Gadin Babul Jota Circuit. If we go to reality, Humbari, you Usasful Nas Wide Army, Taninda, Bugulian, Galian, Nas DINKA, is the DINKA government. While the two vice presidents, they are from one state that we Sudan, two vice presidents, they are from Unity State. Is that denomination? No. Okay, now if we go to Afar-Nile, other regions of the country, three vice presidents are in China. If we go to Equatoria, you have your own vice president there, someone representing you. You have the Speaker of the Parliament. You have Foreign Affairs. You have a lot of ministerial positions in the country. Is that for Jen Ajamana? No. You have your 3 states governors, and how many counties? Maybe 20-something counties in Equatoria. You have your own commissioners there. You have your own PAM administrators, executive directors, BOMA administrators, chiefs, kings, in other positions. So there is nothing called nomination here. We did not nominate anything. So I don't want to prolong because it's just kind of, it's just only we want to give Phil Young Marshall, Young Nation, to give him a kind of a little break, and we can interact with one another. So, Sudan, the bullet, Butana Kuluna. If you don't want to contribute, please just keep quiet and just listen to other South Sudanese. Bombar, if you heard about White Army General David Biel. Gal Kala Zakuma Butat Junub Sudan, Akuma to DINKA, Gal Bagalobus, Ayam Basipat, and Gal Shartamanada, Mafia Akumatani.
Mazola has been saying that since last year.
I tell Umar Baglombus, Sharbus, Ujian Council of Elders, Walayam, and now they are begging. Now they are begging that. Riang Mashar Figumunde, Gulalo, Walariang Mashar, whether you like it or not, Walariang Mashar, does it to at Figu. It to at Figu. So they are now begging Salpakir Galfigzolda. You forget about it, yeah, White Army commander.
They give up. They used to say that property is going to die next month, and if property is not dead now, they say the government of Canada is going to go. So now I don't know what is going to come next. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because what I know, when Riek Machar was arrested, I'm not going to read you. Well, I do a bit of quiet that was all time to be composed. Hal Nadel, White Army, Shabab, that White Army, Undak, Bamu, Jota, Krizira. Well, when they're just sleeping. Yeah, Fibuto. I want to tell you, yeah, David Biel, no, in that power, actually, Juba, I'm supposed to be met with a react, Piamara, the Nagosia. Jumbo J1, with Jumbo Bet Kirmayadi, Jumbo Bet Hosmai. I'm sure not going to fit the zone, but into link my hajaz there because Nas but JCA da Joanna, that was ideology there, Aparak Butana. Woman bigger Nas Kubar that Fina Danin Katir, Dadin, Fisrai, Musaipat, Ufita Anin Zato, Mato. Ufita Anin Zato, yeah, in different countries as we speak. Mafia is in JCA time. Lucky Majanin there, they still always just talking about their name. Well, like JC. Like in JC, Kalib Shakolum in I think around 2015, they will stop. Not for JC Italian Sudan. Because they came up as a result of 2013 just to do campaign of just telling Jane not to listen to IO, not even to listen to the rebel, in order for Jane to go and attack nowhere or Gala. The fight between now is between SPLM only. They came up for a good mission, just wanted to come and rescue. It was a rescue mission. They would be it has all my family, Zol Kabir, Zol Mind to Mukulukum. The good Omari Walai, Buyut that you were the Kalas, who could Gal Kadai, Java got to Buyut. Are you sure? Juba dema galu biyuta denka zato nana babshi police gal bishuk de beta denka yao beta denka de biyuta kalu kutamaru gal leji nafra tari ya a half of Juba ya David Biel Dema dinga bro. Fi nas noer fogo, fi shuluk fogo, fi nas anyak fogo, fi nas bitat jirshon which is low fogo, fi nas atanin bitat Junub Sudan. ممكن نسبة الجوبا يكون لباري أو لإكواتوريا لكن نسبة الجوبا these are different people who has time now عشان نمشي نشوف قال وانت بلقى ليز ده وين ذاته ليز عشان تمشي تشوف قال ده بيت الدنكا قال تمشي تشوف بيت بيج ماونتن ده انت بعرف بيت بتاعي ده وين وانا بكون وين ذاته يوم انت بتجي جوبا ده عشان تجي تكسر بيوت ده تكسر بيتي ولا تكسر بيت بتاع يانج نيشن ولا بيت جاموس ولا بيت مديد ولا بيت ايزولين انا بكون وين أنا بكون في جوبا هنا في جنوب السودان. Anyway, I don't want to prolong, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give it back to General Marialit. I want to give you back the mic, and then you can pass it so that we can just talk a little bit, the Hajat al-Summit now, and the general thing we know in MANIFESTO. I think, Mr. Wal, if you're ready, you can share what you have, and then the other Marshal will come in and put in their perspective. Thank you. Wal, are you ready? Jen, you can go ahead, yeah. Madit is quiet, come on. How today, Jen, yeah. Today you open your mic and then after that we listen from Madit.
Yeah, thank you, So anyway, we do have that year, we have to give them a year to test before we put some 5 minutes and then we go back to the written So if we make it that way, how do you guys see?
Yeah, absolutely. Phil Marshall.
Yeah, we can go to Rajab. After Rajab, we go to King David. We go back to the Marshals, and then we go back to the program. So Rajab, if you're there, you can open your mic.
Well, thank you very much. This is my first time joining you on the stage in this room, partly because this room is largely trained for self-defense, and I have not been part of the battles. And so some of the conversations were a little outside my personal interests. But this particular one on the SPLM manifesto gives me a lot of interest. This document particularly that Young Nation read is one beautiful document in our country. And so I picked interest to share views on this document. And I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to join you on the stage to share my views on this. And thanks to Madid, who invited me, and my greetings to you all on the stage and in the audience. Now, I will share maybe a few preliminary statements and then go to the content of the document very briefly. Now, the SPLA from 1983 to 2012 or today produced 3 manifestos. There was the July 31st of 1983 manifesto, which was the very first manifesto of the SPLM. And then this manifesto of May 2008, which was the manifesto that provided the defining vision of the SPLM leading to the 2010 elections. And something special about this was that the SPLM was still solid as John Garang left it. They had not fragmented to what we have today with the very many fragments, as you know. And the third one was the revision of this version, which was the 2012 version of the manifesto. Now, of these 3 manifestos, this particular one appears to be the best in terms of the depth, breadth, and substance of the Sudanese, but now South Sudanese problems and solutions. The 1983 version was understandably a little inadequate because it was just the beginning and the ideas were not generated much enough, I believe. The 2012 version is a little bit diluted, not as strong as this 2008 version. And the central theme of this version, of this 2008 manifesto of the SPLM, is around the issue of diversity, unity, inclusivity of the peripheries and the marginalized areas of the Sudan. They focused and emphasized this quite a lot if you listened to what Young Nation was reading throughout the document. And the second, the other thing was that this document provides a major contribution to the literature of the liberation struggles of the people of South Sudan. Now, a state and a nation are built over time and over generations. Such a policy document forms a critical building block of the state and the nation. And so generations come, make their contributions, they leave the stage, and they leave these documents. Many things will disappear. Some of the buildings might collapse and so forth, but this information left in documented form will not rot and will not expire. They will remain relevant for long. Now, one significant contribution of Dr. John Garang and the SPLM broadly was the articulation of the issues and solutions to the issues of the Sudan and by extension, South Sudan. If the narration provided by the SPLM since its inception to date were simply adopted and implemented as read out in this document and of course other literature of the liberation struggle, Sudan would not be in the state in which it is today, and South Sudan would also not be in the state in which it is today. So there is need to get back to, in science they say, get back to the starting point. And the starting points in science they refer to as the first principles, where you start with the definitions and start to move to where the solutions should come. And so I want to commend you, Young Nation, for taking your time to read through this historic document. It's an important document for us to know. Now, let me get to the document very briefly. Of course, I can see there are many people on stage, and therefore I will limit my submission because you are also going to continue to read and finish the document. The document focused on, in terms of the problem definition, the document focused on the state, that is 1. 2, it focused on the government. 3, it focused on the elites. And 4, it focused on the issues. That's my understanding of how the problems of the country, of the Sudan and by extension South Sudan, were defined in this the 2008 manifesto. In terms of the state, defining the problem in terms of the state, in the articles, read Article 1.1.6, it says the central problem of the Sudan, therefore, is the post-1956 Sudanese state, which means the post-independence state, essentially an artificial state based on a political system and institutional framework of ethnic and religious chauvinism. And they went on to cite Islamic fundamentalism as such, which excludes the vast majority of its citizens. So you can begin to see that the focus is the issue of this exclusion and inclusion. It also charged the Sudanese state by saying that it is the state, the Sudanese state, epitomized by the power structure in the center, which needs to be radically restructured in order to accommodate Sudan's manifold diversity and attend to all forms of exclusion and marginalization of its people. And then on that note as well, it talks about the concentration of powers at the center in Khartoum. Now, this document, in terms of charging the government with the problem of the Sudan, in Article 1.15, says these governments have failed, referring to the Khartoum-based regimes, have failed to evolve a Sudanese identity, a Sudanese commonality, a Sudanese commonwealth that embraces all Sudanese and to which all Sudanese pledge undivided loyalty, irrespective of their diversity. And in terms of the elites, in Article 3.16, it talks about the national crisis that has been afflicting the Sudan since independence is essentially a crisis of leadership reflected in the social nature of the successive ruling elites, namely their narrow social base, constricted intellectual outlook, backward political values, poor imagination, and so forth. And it goes on to say that these elites have failed in developing the country and resorted to express their parochial interests by adopting divisive policies and using state power in promoting and defending the narrow interests. In that case, for Sudan, they were Arabism and Islamism, which resulted in the crisis of identity, exacerbated the crisis of nation building. And finally, with regard to the issue definition or problem definition, it defines the problem in terms of the ills of the old Sudan, summarizing them into two ills. One was the failure of the successive ruling regimes in Khartoum to evolve a viable national governance framework and a correct definition of a democratic process of nation building based on Sudan's multiple diversities. The second is the failure of these regimes to work out a sound economic program to solve the problem of economic underdevelopment. So now, if you look at this issue definition or the problem definition, they actually almost squarely speak about our country today. So this document can actually as well be termed, if you remove Sudan and simply replace it with South Sudan, the document would speak almost exactly for the issues we face today. Now, maybe in conclusion, this brings me to one thing John Garang once said, that when time comes for us to form, contesting the issue, which Young Nation also read in this document, where the problem of the Sudan was particularized to the South as the problem of Southern Sudan. And a lot more times the SPLM talked about this, saying this problem is a problem of governance in Khartoum. And so Garang, in trying to also dispel this notion, he did mention that when time comes for us to establish a government in South Sudan, and we established our own government and continue to do the things Khartoum was doing, then we will now have the real problem of the South. We are almost exactly where he predicted. We established a government of South Sudan, but largely, almost everything we continue to do are almost exactly the same things Khartoum was doing, as you can read from this document. And this presents a clear trajectory or a clear framework for us to get back to the basics and begin to plot our way out of this crisis. And I think that there is adequate intellectual capacity on this forum, but also generally across the country, that we can utilize to make use of these available resources that have been developed as part of our struggle for the independent South Sudan. One thing we could do in respect of those who fell in the course of the liberation struggle is to deliver on the objectives of the liberation struggle, so that if, of course, hypothetically, they were to get back to life today, they would identify with the objectives for which they fell or made the ultimate sacrifice for us to have this country. As a respect to the fallen martyrs and heroes and heroines of our country, I think we need to take these articulations we're going to these documents and engage intellectually to see what we can do as our contribution to realizing this vision. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Rajab Mohandes, for coming up, for being with us today, and the opportunity that you took to say one or two statements. We appreciate your presence. I would agree with you. Agree with, let me say, 90% of what you say. It is very unfortunate that what the people of Sudan were fighting, the government, various governments in Khartoum, seems to be happening in South Sudan. Lack of development, for example, neglect, wars, insecurity, corruption, and so on. They're rampant in South Sudan. It's true. I would agree with you. Even President Salva Kiir can agree with you if they were to be here, because he acknowledged most of the time that we are facing challenges and difficulties. Taban, the issues of Sudan, the whole Sudan by then, they included identity and religion. This is the missing thing now in South Sudan, because in South Sudan we don't have theocratic government that is forcing people, either Christianity or Islam or any of the world religions. We don't have that. Even this racism, there is no racism in South Sudan. Although there are people who are saying that, you know, this country is being hijacked by the Jenge, they are imposing themselves on people. That, I think, is not like, if it exists, yeah, because who are we to say they should not express their opinions? But the constitution of South Sudan is very clear. It doesn't talk of any legalized or constitutional tribal hegemony. Whereas in the Sudan, they used to talk of Arabism and Islamism. They were contained in the constitution of the country. So that is what I want to add briefly. Otherwise, I appreciate you, Mohandes Rajab. Shukran.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Field Marshals, who is coming next? King David, you are highly welcome for being up with us here. I want to see who came ahead of you to take the mic.
Let King David go.
Okay, shukran. King David, go ahead.
Okay. Greetings to you, Marshals, and the participants and the audience. Thank you, young nation, for the crisp and clear reading of the SPLM manifesto. I don't remember what was the last time I read the manifesto, and I think it was the original manifesto that I read long time ago. I haven't read this new version. I think this is a new version, amended version of the SPLM manifesto. I don't know when was this amendment made.
2008.
2008. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Yeah, because when you were reading, I felt like there was an acronymism in there, acronym in it there. When you mention events of 1989, so I said, what is that? And then you went on. You mentioned later events like the convention of 1994 and stuff like that. But I came to realize that that is the amended version of the manifesto. But however, there is not much difference between the original one and the amended version, except the elements that were an expression of socialist literature. Things like enemies and potential enemies, potential friends and stuff like that. These are the things that that have been amended, but the articulation SPLM vision and everything else remains the same. And as Rajab Al-Mohandis mentioned, this is a wonderful document. It is a very wonderful articulation of the problem of Sudan, the problems of Sudan. It very well diagnosed those problems, and also it's very well created a blueprint for a future nation, a nation of justice, inclusivity, and a nation for all. The problem is when you compare what has been articulated in the manifesto and the practices on the ground. In reality, that is a bad thing, and I think it's something to do. It doesn't relate particularly to a plan to mismanage or something like that. It is just, I think, it is just our culture in relation to laws and their application. Our people can write very good documents, they can write very good laws, and bylaws and everything. But when it comes to application, they fail miserably. Now, the political scene looks like what has been articulated in the book of Animal Farm. They created very good laws, and then in application they started changing them in application. The animal farm laws were they were amended. They were amended particularly, but the SPLM laws are not amended physically, but the application of these laws, or the neglect of these laws, or failure of application of these laws, it renders us like we are the animal farm inhabitants. So, and also, I wonder how many veterans have really read the manifesto and have internalized it the way it should be. But I know one person who has been always, his speeches, Dr. John Garang, his speeches were always from, the articulation of popularization of the articles of the manifesto. When you listen to any his speeches or any his videos, now that are available online, and you are someone who has read the manifesto, he's speaking from manifesto. He's trying to preach what is in the manifesto. But I am not sure about the rest of the gallants, the SPLA gallants, and the veterans, whether they have the same internalization of the manifesto. And that is the problem. But as Rajab said, it will remain a very good reference, a very good blueprint for anyone to improve the situation and improve in the country. Thank you very much.
Okay, shukran. Thank you very much, King David.
I will write it and claim it to author that is our constitution. I don't think there is any problem with that. We can replace every word, there with our own word that we need to put it in. But the problem, as you mentioned, that is, are we going really to benefit by just copying American Constitution and then claim it to be ours? Yes, I don't think so, because American Constitution was American people and American interests, and how they apply it as well. That's something that America know how to handle it. Yes, there are so many, stated sort of documents or papers that can be produced by our political, parties, and especially SPLM Taban is South Sudanese or Sudanese, but mainly South Sudanese have their, like we kind of like we champion it as people of South Sudan. Even though it was meant for us, to produce a new Sudan, of which a new Sudan that will definitely will be a product of similarly to what the Constitution or the Manifesto manifested there, and that challenge are there and are not easy, by the way, because producing a constitution and then continue to be respecting it, it's not an easy thing. Okay, even American Constitution, the reason why they have to do some amendment, like I think there is something called second, third, whatever, amendments. It was actually when the Constitution started to be abused by individuals whom they are in the power, and that's what brought something called the Bill of Rights to some point. I'm not American anyway, but I think American goes of one knows better than we here. But exactly because when you are in the power and then you start to enjoy it, you don't see what you can harm others or how you can corrupt that powers in your hands without checks and balance. Okay? Now in us there in South Sudan, we cannot deny it, we cannot say, manifesto that was produced by SPLM is something that myself, I still believe in it. I have the both, the amended one of 2008 and 2016. I think, Young Nation, you were reading the 2016 amended one. And that
2008, he was reading the 2008 version.
Okay, yes. And then that's it. Now, our leaders, I don't think they revisit to read what the cornerstone of our party values, if they revisit it and read it, and then reflect on governing over it. I don't think so. Okay, let's be honest, and that are somehow for people like myself. I will never, accept to continue in such a way. I will always be asking for reform within the SPLM, so we can reflect what we fought for in old Sudan, and then we end up having a new Sudan or South Sudan to be different. Okay, these are the things that we always have to keep in our mind. But saying that the challenges that now we are dealing with are things that can be resolved. We should not, give up the hopes, or we become hopeless, and we think now we are a copy-paste of Sudan, and this thing going to continue such a way forever. I don't think so. With Genobi, we are in a better shape to be better than the whole Sudan. That's all I can say. So keep the torch high there. The promise is going to happen. So thank you, brother.
Thank you,
Young Nation.
Yes, shukran. Thank you very much. This manifesto.
Sir, Young Nation.
Yes.
Is my network clear now?
You are clear, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. I was trying to make the point earlier, but all these marshals and our guest here, Rajab Manis, mentioned some of them. Yeah, manifesto was helping when we were in the bush. It was fighting with nepotism. That's why fire squad was introduced, and because one of the South Sudanese went and gave it to Limeri. I think we read it here. Young Nation read it how the manifesto ended up in Khartoum and Limeri took it, and then went to Washington, to America here, and then gave it to them, and then go against communism. So Jungarang actually, or the SPLM, limited it. It did not actually produce it in mass to give it to all the South Sudanese to read it. That's how, at that time, there were a lot of phones or network. It should have been like print out in money, give it to all of us, carry it around and read it. At that time, actually, to create fear to all of us. But thing, Animal Farm, Animal Farm actually was written for Western ideology, how to control other human beings in the world. And itself is not a rule, but their philosophy was, it was written in a difficult way that one cannot understand it, but Animal Farm, George Orwell actually wrote about 3 books. He wrote a lot of books. When you read that properly, carefully, I think there's no rule, but their ideology was the colonialism, how to control other people, their group, their economy, and all of this, and then power. But for us, as Rajab said, every human being in this country or in any country to be peaceful and become powerful is first to eliminate tribalism and nepotism, and that should only be the law dealing with our tribalism. It has to be individual, to be you to implement it. Say, you know what, I'm a South Sudanese. Why should I go against the other tribe? I talked to one of the Eritreans, and he told me that we hate each other. But the reason why we let Aparak stay longer is because we don't want to fight ourselves. He said many Eritreans were given money by the West to form the Bell Movement and be able to fight and remove Aparak. And he said, you know what, we are Eritreans. We say no, we don't like Aparak, but we don't like to fight. And then I feel really bad, and I said, why not us doing the same thing? Now, if you go to Ethiopia now are trying right now to eliminate that. You ask one of the Ethiopians who tell you, I'm a South Sudanese. For us who have been in Ethiopia, we know their tribe. We know who is Amara, who are Grage, and so many of them. When I ask them, what tribe are you? They will say, I'm just Ethiopian. And if you say, if you keep going, they will try to say, go away. I'm Ethiopian. Why are you asking But for us, you would go and meet with Ethiopian, meet with others now, and say, I'm Nuer, I'm Dinka, I'm this, I'm the Tugu, I am this. Then you explain yourself. And that is foolish. We should be cryptic. Let's use cryptology, whereby you say, I don't know. You see, many Americans, if you ask them for the direction or anything that is knowledgeable, they will tell you, no, I don't know. Block your mind. And then if you keep asking, they will yell at you. So this is how they become smart. You cannot go between them to try to divide them or know their identity. But as we allowed ourselves to go and describe each other, to other people that I'm from this tribe, we do this. You would find our people foolishly explaining themselves to the people that they don't even know, the people that will not explain themselves, right? In some countries, like Israel, they have 2 names. Everyone have 2 names, right? They don't tell you the real name, but they can tell you the different name. These are coded and created to themselves in their country. But us, I don't know where we will go. We belong to that country, South Sudan. Yeah, manifesto was supposed to be read by many of us, even as some of us who were Jegelam, we were supposed to be given, especially the leaders of Jegelam. They were supposed to be given, but the SPLM top head leaders were not trusting everybody. That book should have been spread out, but orally, they were all implemented, you know, and we were in the military train field. They would tell you, don't do this, Mafia Kwan, Mafia Kabilia, that was manifesto. Because John Garam gave many speeches that this young man mentioned. Yeah, but I will stop there, Marshall.
Marshall,
yeah,
Tontat, very quick. If you
Rajab, you're blinking, go ahead.
Yes, just very briefly, starting from where Tontat stopped. First, the speeches delivered by the SPLM leaders during the struggle were essentially talking about the content of these policy documents, what we wanted as the new Sudan, what the problem was, and all of that. Interestingly, those leaders, commanders, would speak on those issues for hours, meaning that they understood what the SPLM was fighting for. So it should have been very easy for them to implement these policies now that they are in power. So it is important to actually remind them that this is where they should go and this is what they should implement. Secondly, on that you talked about the issues of ethnicity, where some people would not tell you their ethnicities. There are these. It happens in some countries. Now, but I want to comment on this issue of ethnicity and the perception sometimes where you find individuals saying, my tribe is South Sudan, for example. These ethnic communities or these ethnicities are extremely important identities and inheritance that we got from our parents. They were given down to our parents by their parents and their grandparents and great-grandparents. This is one thing that when you lose, you don't find it in the market anywhere. If I come from a small community in Western Equatoria. If we lose our language, we lose our ethnic identity, we will never recover it forever. So this is something that we need to cherish, and our laws also speak to that our cultural identities and languages should be promoted and also used as a source of strength, not sources of division. The problem comes with issues of ethnicity. So I should be free to say, mention my ethnicity, where I come from, our language. It's good for me to promote that, to let people know that this is what defines me. And a higher identity exists now when we come together collectively, which is the South Sudanese identity, supposedly. Now, the issue comes where when you now put me as a governor or a state or a national minister in a position of authority, I then prioritize my ethnicity above the rest. If there is an opportunity, I pass it to people from my ethnicity. That is where ethnicity is abused. But otherwise, if there is anything we should protect and promote, it is actually this ethnic inheritance that we brought, that were handed to us from generations, and they stand to disappear if we do not protect them. So I would argue that let us protect our ethnic identities, recognize them that they exist, but let us not use them to provide advantage to ourselves. They should be used as sources of relations among ourselves in the ethnic context. But when you raise the position of authority, you serve the constituency equally. If the constituency is your county, if it is your state, or if it is the nation itself as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rajab Mohandes.
Young man, let me clear it, Rajab. I was not meaning that you should be explaining yourself It's mean like we are a tribe when we meet with outsiders that could penetrate among us and divide us like what the West are doing. So inside, we know each other, but we allowed ourselves to be exploited because identity is your awareness. That's what I was meaning. So we should be like coming to the white guy and say I'm this and this to know how. But now we know they have tribes. They have tribe here, but they don't tell you their convention they met and they say they were going to use the color. Say we are white people. That's what I was meaning. We are South Sudanese when you look at us. But us, we know each other there. Thank you. Go ahead, young nation.
Shukran. Thank you very much. Raja Mahandis and Contact for that exchange. Yajama, we are left with a very small area of this reading. You want me to finish it so that we just deal with the participation of everyone, or you want me to leave it for a while? Sure. Go ahead.
I would actually recommend that you complete it.
I think why don't you let Kunjoko contribute something to come up to make some point.
Okay.
And wait.
Okay, Shukran. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Just left with
young nation, I just want to say one point, one interjection to Contact, and then I will give it to Kunjo. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Contact, the Animal Farm book by George Orwell was not, it was actually a criticism or a satire on the communist system. That is what it was all about. It was not about the control of the West or something like that. Maybe they wanted to destroy the communist system so that they can be the dominant power. So that is what I wanted to clarify. Yeah.
Thank you, King David. Yeah. All right, yeah, Jama, if we agree, let me finish this so that we put it aside, and then we just deal with. Anna, I was stopping at the democratic management of diversity. So far, we have finished with 80% or even 85%.
Let Kunjog say something, and then you continue.
I get the opportunity. You get green light for us to go.
Okay. Then go ahead, young nation. Yeah.
That's all right. Thank you. So let me finish this quickly. Democratic management of diversity. For Sudan to be voluntarily united in diversity rather than divided by diversity, the constitutional and institutional arrangements, programs, and policies of the new Sudan should be reflective of both the historical and contemporary realities of the country. The new Sudan belongs equally to all the peoples that now inhabit the country. Its history, its diversity and richness are the common heritage of all Sudanese. The process of the national formation presupposes deep introspection into Sudan's history as well as drawing from the experiences of other countries in order to form a unique Sudanese nation that does not have to take refuge elsewhere. Religion is part of humanity. All Sudanese have beliefs, whether they are Muslims, Christians, or believers in indigenous African religions. Thus, freedom of worship for all followers of religions or traditional beliefs shall be guaranteed without favor or prejudice to any one of them. All that the vision of the new Sudan proposes is that religion regulates the relationship between humans and their creator, a relation governed by religious legislation in the personal realm. The state, on the other hand, is a social political institution contrived by humans, embracing all regardless of their respective religious affiliations. In the new Sudan, it is the democratic constitution and not the New Sudan culture, equitable growth, and environmentally sustainable development. The economic model of the New Sudan would make rational use of the country's vast natural and human resources with a view of arresting unequal development, putting an end to all forms of marginalization and deprivation, and achieving equitable distribution of the fruits of growth. Thus, poverty reduction and its ultimate eradication will be the overreaching objective of development, with emphasis on equality and employment issues, as well as access and equity in the provision of basic social services. An integral part of even development is the appropriate and fair sharing of wealth among the various peoples of the Sudan. The regulatory role of the state in the social and economic fields shall be undertaken with due consideration to the above requirements. In doing so, the state shall cooperate, among others, with trades unions and concerned civil society organizations. A social market is an organized economy whereby lawful regulation of the free market forces aims at achieving social results. Therefore, the New Sudan economic system shall be efficient and equitable in a sustainable fashion, in which corruption and graft are eliminated. Private initiative is encouraged, competitiveness observed, and government's social responsibility not indicated. It is a free market economy in which both public and private sector complement and reinforce each other, with the role of the public sector concentrated on providing social overhead services, basic infrastructure, social welfare, and technical and technological advancement. While oil revenues are a boon to economy, they shall cease to be so if they are not used to fuel agriculture, rural development, and the transformation of traditional farming through technological innovation. In order to end urban biases and centered focused development orientation, the SPLM's vision is to take towns to people in the countryside rather than people to towns, where they end up in slums with a consequent deterioration in the quality of their lives. Taking towns to the people in the countryside rather than people to towns will not only preclude the phenomenon of slum dwellers, but will also help ensure that people stay on the land, so that agriculture and agro-industry can flourish. Our economic model shall take advantage of globalization by increasingly transforming it into a knowledge-based economy to speed up development while at the same time mitigating the negative consequences of globalization. However, this has to take place in the context of a meaningful strategy for sustainable development that is anchored in science and technology. Major challenges such as sparing industrial and agricultural productivity, ensuring food security, controlling diseases, providing clean water, and preserving the environment cannot be met adequately without using science and technology. Environmental management in the New Sudan will be strongly anchored on the concept of sustainable human development and peace. The focus is on equitable and sensible utilization of natural resources among the citizens without jeopardizing the rights of future generations, preventing resource-based conflict and its consequences, acknowledging the citizens' rights, especially the indigenous people, to a clean, safe, and healthy environment, and spreading the culture of environmental rights through the principle of avoiding harm to the environment. New Sudan in a globalized world. The SPLM forms part of the global forces, including political parties and civil society organizations in developing and developed world countries, campaigning for a humane and equitable world order. In its historical evolution, the SPLM or the movement has gained from and contributed to a culture of human solidarity across the globe. In its worldwide interactions, the SPLM was informed by values of internationalism, promotion of human rights against all abuses and violations, and support for national liberation struggles and people's fight against oppression and tyranny. The SPLM shall continue to work with other like-minded forces to promote the transformation of the global order away from unilateralism, conflict and confrontation, to cooperation, human solidarity, and peace. The movement shall also struggle to chart a path of hope and human solidarity, to pursue resolution of conflicts through dialogue and peaceful means, and to promote mutual friendship among peoples of the world. In doing so, the SPLM proceeds from the premise that all nations have a shared responsibility to improve the human condition. The movement's standpoint on these global concerns is prompted by its profound commitment to realize the interests of the Sudanese people, as well as by its commitment to the well-being of humanity as a whole. The SPLM shall continue to build and strengthen progressive alliances and networks across the globe, including interstate, party-to-party, and people-to-people relations in pursuit of an equitable and humane global order. That is the aim, ladies and gentlemen. Before I hand over, I want to say this is a brilliant reading. As I go through it, I've been absorbing a lot of positive points. And like Rajab said before, when we are reading this, I think we should forget about Sudan and talk about South Sudan. We should forget about Sudan and talk about South Sudan, because the issue of Sudan now is a gone case, it's done. And the challenge now is on the leadership in Juba. Even some of us who support the regime in Juba, rampant corruption, zero service delivery, insecurity. You can name so many challenges that are afflicting our people. I think all of us here, whether you are an opposition or you are a government supporter, the end game of what is happening in South Sudan, I think we should challenge ourselves, whatever leadership you are in, whether opposition or government, to make sure that the people of South Sudan deserve better. I mean, this silly political game in the country, power struggle. We know that there are people who are now hiding behind the suffering people of South Sudan, thinking that or telling them that they are the alternative, when in fact they are criminals. Anybody who's running in the jungle, whether in the swamp of Upper Nile, or in the jungle and mountains of Equatoria, or in the jungle and plain land with Bahal Ghazal, these people are criminals because they were part of the system. They looted to the maximum. For example, Nazir and Afghanistan, for your information, Pagan and Thomas Chirunda are not working. They're not working in the warehouses or in the factories or on the farm or no. But the question is, have you ever asked yourself, how are they surviving? Fat money that they stolen, isn't it? Well, again, do you agree with it or not? These people are not working, but the question is, how are they surviving? Because they have looted.
I thought that
millions and millions of dollars.
Young Nation
making noise.
Young Nation. Huh? I thought that
blaming self-accused and the rest in the government when they were part and parcel. So Kalamda is a big challenge to all of us. This manifesto with the SPLM must be implemented in South Sudan, and the only way, or the only reason why South Sudan is upside down is because of lack of political unity. Think about it. If our politician or ruling class or political class are united, our people will unite. But if they disagree in Juba and they fight, our people fight. Because our people, majority of them are, I don't know, what should I say? They are still very innocent. They don't know what is happening. Even some do not know their rights.
They are followers, like disciples.
Exactly. Because why? Lack of education. Modern education. Yeah. Because if they were highly educated Muslim or basically educated, they would have known their interest to isolate themselves from all of this, whether they are in the government or outside the government. These politicians, they would have challenged all of them. If somebody was if they are out of the government, whether they were governors or commissioners or ministers or vice presidents, and they are fired, they become champions for the reform of democracy. But when they were there, take Riek Machar, for example, who was in charge of South Sudan during the interim period. Constitutionally, it was self-accused, but practically on the ground, it was Riek Machar. What did he do to learn people, dog people in Lair or unity state or the Nuer people, Muslim? Because who are our champion as a girl is a champion according to what they say. Are you trying to tell me mind Gurush? Oh, he has money. If Riek Machar embark on project development in unity state today, Riek Machar will be able to build a world first-class kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, and university. How many of you agree here or disagree? If Riek say he want to do them today, kindergarten just like in US or Canada or Australia, he will do it in unity state. Mean kindergarten, then he will do it. Then from kindergarten to primary school, and then from primary school to high school to university. But the question is he willing to do that? Of course not. So Calamity is a big challenge. So what I want to leave with all of you now is let us think of South Sudan, especially when you are referring to this manifesto. Calamity of Sudan, the English, finish. And I think I will stop there and I'll give chances to the rest of you. And thank you once again for listening. The purpose of doing this is for us to decentralize knowledge, to spread knowledge. There are people who just hear SPLM manifesto. What is additional? But mind of Zaman to go through it. Because our people are not good at reading or studying, doing independent research to talk. No. I'm sure that some of you are shocked now. Wow. Is this the manifesto that I always hear? Yes, it is. It is. This is the one. Beautifully crafted. And the more I read it, whenever I go and listen to speeches of Dr. Garan, I hear Dr. Garan talking here. Because he contributed more than 60%. Well, again, the paragraphs and the pages that I read here, do you hear Dr. Garan talking there or not? How many of you hear the presentation with Garan? So, Kalanda? Exactly. So, thank you very much. Anna, but then after you finish, all of you, we will talk about this DINKA domination theory. Because I said before, the SPLM was for the entire Sudan. And that it was a voluntary thing for you to pack up your bag and then unite to Ethiopia. It was open to everyone, but some people, for whatever reason, there were minorities in the SPLM who massive presidential decrees were done their market. The Aparak people who dominated the liberation struggle.
Where did they go?
Because of Anyanya too, because of nothing. Do you think that had effect on them or not? Of course it did. Well, James Tumbura Mush was the last president with a high executive government in Sudan. So what do you expect, Yani? If the son of Zande was one of the advocates of Kokara, he even sanctioned and he passed it. He implemented. What do you think the people would do? He would talk to them. So if you put the three people, Dominic Casiano, Isaiah Paul, James Tumbura, what do you expect? The few Zande who were in the movement, we are not saying they were not there, they were there, but send to Henade, late General Samuel Abujan. This is Samuel Abujan. Samuel Abujan, I think. he played a very patriotic role. When he came to the movement in the early 90s, he went into Western Equatoria and he talked. Zande joined the movement in the early 1990s. Okay? So, Yajama Kalam, Anna, what I want to say is this. And this is the
Kalam Field Marshal, Kalam added as more that to Alkanma intellectual field. They noticed that James Tumbrada, he was one of the biggest problems. Nagal and then Juba ya Nameri, the Jiri Fitam, Umafi, Kalam, SPLM, Garab, ya James Tumbra, Karije Kerbino, Gadamna, William Yon, Gadamna, Alela, Bourgeoisie, Choboy, Wasil Khartoum. Yeah, the Kalam
exactly. Yes, exactly.
And the other song says that the Bijo Lungwaro is on swing. You see that our fight will start it with the first.
I know what I want to say before. There is
an element of domination there or not?
Well, General Marialdi, if you want to disregard that, that means representation would mean nothing.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to connect the domination itself find itself because of the movement participation, and that what is really this is what is put in there. So it's not I'm dismissing it, but I'm not denying it. I can see it in my eyes. That's what I'm feeling. Real trying to place it there.
Yeah, General Marialdi. Let us be fair. Let's say there is sizable number of DINKA in the government of President Salva Kiir. The President of the Republic of South Sudan is a Jiang son. Some of the ministerial positions in the country, the critical ministerial positions, are from Jiang, headed by Jiang son. The army, you can see sizable number of DINKA there, especially after the 2013, when the so-called 70% defected. Those who came with Matic, remember? They defected, they joined the war, they stormed into the bushes. Then that actually created a platform, what people call DINKA domination in South Sudan. Now, the people who are radicals online, they say that there is DINKA domination. If you ask them why, they say because Salva Kiir, president is a GM. Most of the ministerial position from GM. Most of the generals are from GM. They name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you know what they say from that? They say, since this is the case, anything happening in South Sudan, whether on the social front or political front or diplomatic front or economic front, especially negatively, is the responsibility of Jiang as a community. Because they are the ones who are running the show. Okay. Fine. But let's put that aside. The same people who think that what they are doing here is funny and that they are making sense. Let us ask them a question. Let's go back to the SPLM. In the SPLM, which can change the SPLM political bureau, military high command, which country? Yes. What about the DINKA? Were DINKA there or not in big numbers? Who was the chairman of the SPLM? Victor Garang. Victor Garang was not a Zande. He was not a Tuka. He was from Jiang. Let's put it there. What about Karvino Kwanyin Bol? A Jiang. What about Salva Kiir? A Jiang. These are high-ranking members. What about Arok Konarok? Jiang. Let's talk about the first top five positions, because these top positions yes, they were dominated by him with the exception of one man, William Yon Bang. Okay?
My young nation, yes, but for me, I cannot call it the domination. That one was happened during the people took the arm against the Khartoum regime. Whoever came first will got positions. You know, this was not a domination, and those the South Sudanese themselves, if they were where there's a humiliations have been done by the Southerners from the north,
everybody will have to go to Bilpam before everybody, and then we will see. There's no domination from there even.
No, brother, Phil Marshall. The thing is, let us play to that tune. Because that kind of reasoning you are saying now, they cannot buy it. Especially the way people talk on social media. So what I'm trying to do here, I'm coming from an angle of trying to, these people, what they are doing on social media, they are field marshals and the rest of you. They think, like I said before, they think they are funny. But what they are doing, they are being selective. So we have already defined the government of South Sudan and the positions held by DINKA. To them, it's a domination. What I'm coming to now is that let's talk about the SPLM. And then, like I said before, the 5 top positions with our military high command, with the exception of one, all of them were jailed. Aparak Tonaro, Karbino Kwanyin Salva Kiir Mayadi, Dr. Garang, and then William Nguyen. The question is, was that a domination or not? Because there was no government. It was a rebel movement. Because the policy of the movement, once you were elevated, you are closer to death. Well, again, because you'll be taken to war zone. You will be given a sizable number of troops, and then you are told to go and attack Nasser. Go and attack Afoita or Torit. High command. It was not a joke. Now, we always talk about the commanders of the SPLM, SPLA. And we had gone a great deal to read out 800. 800. And you know what I mean? Out of 800, 600 were jailed. Was that domination or not? Yes, it was, isn't it? And remember, there was no president of South Sudan. There was no country called South Sudan. It was a matter of life and death. Those people were fighting. People were fighting not just against any innocent animal, but animals like Bugulu, government of Sudan. That was akin to buffalo. Remember, fighting a buffalo. It's very risky business. You don't go there. A woman cannot go. Children are not, even weak individuals are not allowed to go there. But you must be fully equipped to confront the buffalo. Okay? So it was there. The rest of the 200 were divided upon these ethnic groups in South Sudan, Unuba Mountain, and Gassel. They were minorities. Now the question is, and this is the most important, this is the center of my argument. And I've been doing this before Aparak was even open. I used to ask them. Now, the fundamental question is, if you can argue successfully, 100%, you don't sleep on the social media. Every day you talk about DINKA domination in the government of South Sudan because of Salva Kiir, because of ministerial positions occupied by Jane, because of Nile Pet, with our finance, with our defense, chief of general staff, and so on. Name it. If you have the audacity, and this is the argument here, if you have the audacity to say that this government is a DINKA government, they are the ones who are running the show. So they must take the responsibility of the failures they have failed the country. This is what they say. You name them. All these radicals online. They are comfortable saying that. But at the same time, if you tell them, since you are given the responsibility of the negativities in the country to DINKA as a community, you must accept that DINKA liberated you because there were many in the movement. The moment they hear that, high blood pressure, they must be told to accept that because there is no time for cherry picking. You know, I think this should be the center of debate on the social media. This should be the center of debate. You must accept, you must give DINKA community credit, come on. Because if you are holding them responsible for the ills in the country because of President Salva Kiir's leadership, give them the credit of liberation because Dr. Garang was the leader of the SPLM. Garang was a DINKA. 600 officers out of 800 were from one community, Give them that credit.
Do they know how many people died? How many people died behind those 800 commanders? How many people died? A lot of people. A lot. More than 90% died, if I'm not wrong.
That's the reason why I said before these people, it was a matter of life and death which you have promoted in the SPLM demand. So, into your article online here, we will take the responsibility with our failures in South Sudan, but also give credit to DINKA for liberating you. What Amulena is like, oh, they always say you liberated us. Why do you say that we destroyed the country? Well, I think I am more radical online here. Well, terrorist white army. Well, terrorist IO online here. And Biamu, that claim, you slap him whenever they say Denka, Jenga Karabelek, you slap him in Denka, liberated you. Until they sit down and they say, no. That is not the case, because we should not allow them to do that. Well, I think that is the only way to deal with them. They talk about failures in the country, they give it to Denka, we ask them, we say, yes, we liberated you. What are you saying? What you're saying. That is the argument. That is the argument, ladies and gentlemen. So I think I will stop here and then pick it up from wherever you want to pick it up. If you want to talk about the manifesto, you want to talk about DINKA domination, the floor is open. And let us talk about this issue. But always remember, you are a DINKA, you destroyed the country. Oh, yes, I destroyed the country, but I liberated the country. If they run back, say, no, don't run back. Go ahead.
For me personally, this argument didn't start new. This argument that was in from the we'll say in around 2010 or 11. This argument was already on. Like Denga dominated. Yeah, myself, I took a time to look at what it was meant Denga dominated. If you connected it to the liberation itself that brought the government of South Sudan to be the government, yes, the big portion of Junubin were the leading group, and again the domination itself. Me, I don't feel offended with it, because there are reasons. When there is a domination, it doesn't come just because people are eager for it. Even in old Sudan, the Denka domination there with Jalin were sharing it together. I don't know if some of you will agree with me or you disagree with me in that point too. Starting from 1936 all the way through, if you look at the government of Sermonukida, if you look at the Dinkas that were among the ministers, I think you will get among them was this man called Santino Dente. Throughout that, yes.
There's all Bugulu Sir Khatim al Khalifa.
Sir Khatim al Khalifa is later. I think that was later, like 1960. Lakin, Santino Dente was among the pioneer members of that government of Anglo condominium of Egyptian and Britain, and then that doesn't say there was few Dinkas among them there, and throughout anyway. For me personally, in 2011, I was counting the ministers and positions and very sensitive area like police commissioners, directors of national security, and so on and so forth. And when I count really balance, I will get almost half of that, committee will be Munji, or more than half. And then it doesn't take away the word Denk is dominating, which is really, yes, Denk is dominating. Not dominating like the Denk is only the one that's running the entire government, is the government of Denk. That's also it's not the case here. There are participants there among those Dinkas, sharing equally, enjoying equally, living lavish life equally with Dinkas too. Loder Marau fee, Loder Shulkawi fee, Loder Maru tribe and Azraja Bisum, Loy Loy Timzola Lakin even this so they are there. Okay? Like if you ask the reason why did the Dinka really find themselves to be a dominant, is that like because they are Dinkas, that's how they got it? No. There are an effort that was done to make them reach where they are. In particular, dominated by Chulukia, not the Denga. No. I was in Juba that time. I was counting now the Gil Manoli, now Munu, all these police commissioners. Munu, it was only like I'm counting the very. I'm not talking about the states because the states are run by their. I'm talking about the level of national, like the national government. But if they state there are some Dinkas, the state are run by their own Dinkas, there are some Equatorian state are run by their Equatorian. And there are some, state of Upper Nile entirely run by Nuer. Okay. So for me, I don't disagree with the word Dinka dominated government. Equally, Dinka contributed in the liberation of South Sudan with domination as well. This is how they and by the way, there are some Dinkas that are being marginalized there. They are not even sharing. They are not enjoying. Okay? If you go down to see if there are Dinkas really represented in this government, you call it the government of Dinkas. No. There are some Dinkas that have been excluded for some time. Maybe currently it's dominated by Medina Wool, Bokrial somehow have a big portion of these national figures in government. The currently maybe yes, that's the domination even will start with my hometown Medina Wool. Even though I'm not benefiting from what they dominated. How is that down now? It doesn't make sense. They dominate and I'm not enjoying. I'm not even employed. Okay? I'm running for my life in Australia, working 2-3 jobs so I can make my family live.
You get paid by Bolmel, you get paid by Bolmel.
How am I getting paid by Bolmel? I'm a Uber driver, I'm working in factory, I'm doing that. If I need Bolmel can give me a job, I would be happy. You see? Why would I get there and I still have to, to work 2 jobs so I can pay my needs? The school fees, the sport fees, what? I'll be living a lavish life. I'll be buying some gold to my wife. I'll be going for holiday with my wife. And I will be enjoying really if I know Bolmel from the close distance to help me or to assist me. Okay? So no, we are not. Even I'm just joking. But I'm just joking. Even me, I have been accused that I have been bribed by Bolmel. One of our brothers, even our young brothers in opposition. That's true. That's true. Yeah. I said, are you serious? Being bribed, Yeah. True. I believe that Aparak are being, paid even now. To my disappointment, even the chief girl of the Torukon has been paid also to, to be a member of Aparak another day. I was laughing anyway because it's like this nonsense is like going in these people's minds, including these, Mustafafin with our social media. Then, now David Biel, they believe now, Jan Matthew, they believe that we have been paid, and that's the reason we are actually down the clock. This is just like a complete nonsense. But not to prolong, because I know there are so many people waiting there to add in. I will definitely agree there is a domination, but that doesn't mean that entirely everything is being cooked only by Dinkas. There are some element of partners within the other tribes, including Nuer, including Munu, they are in there. They are sharing it, they are enjoying it, they are participating, in all levels. In corruption, they are doing it as well. Everything. So the participation is what brought in the domination. That's the fact. That's the only thing that's my answer. I want to answer something to Rajab Mahandis about borrow it for short time, but after short time we go back to our cocoons. When Moro Zeg the MC Le Moro Butao, when Luo MC Le Luo Butao, when Munuki the MC. So why are we mixing this? The first identity we should actually take it as our real identity, and we put it in the back. This is a failure of our government. It's not a failure of Martini. Okay? It is a failure of the government of South Sudan. What should have happened? Government of South Sudan should have learned from the neighboring countries that are struggling with the tribalism, including Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Congo. So we here, Kajimubin, we should have actually introduced a very harsh laws that define if you cross this, then your tribalism can be considered as a crime. There is an acceptance area where the tribalism or the tribe culture can be embraced, and I think this is very clear in manifesto somewhere there. Okay, but the leaders, our elites, comes to Mr. Fakir, the Machar, the list goes on. The best example of the tribalism within us is starting with our leaders. Okay, so these are the people who did not really direct citizen how to construct the new identity that we all belong in. Okay? This is where the problem. So what is needed there to fix this? It is to produce some laws or introduce laws that to define and actually to go around to tell Junubi, being a Denka, you're not a Muslim. You can enjoy your Denkism in your cocoon, in your inside. Being a Nuer is not a crime too. Being a Shilluk is not a crime. Okay? But when you are in a place that all of us are in there, you need to put away your tribe. Especially in the work areas, the schools, public places, the sport. These are the things that we need to only introduce ourselves as Junubin, South Sudanese. That's it. And I think Junubin are easy to fix this. It's only the absence of direction by laws from the government. This is where the problem actually came from. This is how I see it for me. Okay? So probably we will definitely, and also you, you need also to find some workshops that they really can find a way to champion this. Okay? Because some of our government are actually with a limited scope of even looking at this, especially if you go to the state, because some states are just entirely what's happening. Some states are just like almost one happening group. For example, us in a will, we don't need to even, we only have 2 tribes there or 3. I believe it's majority of us are 2 tribes, Luo and Dinka. The rest of Nas Palata, Nas Munudel, they are just like a visitor. Or Nas Grace, Nas Munudel, and Virginia and Waldel, practice Virginia and our neighbors, like Nas Gemziber, Nas Yabulo, Nas Munudel. They just come in and they already speak Dinkas like us too. Find them different with us. So there is no real identity crisis, a problem in a will. I think that actually tell a will only to use the Dinkas in national affairs, like in a parliament, when they are speaking that now. They should be clearly in the state of a will, in the government offices, everything should be either English or that, that's other second language. And that should go all across. But now, if I go example, but that's the same thing all across South Sudan. Okay? And this is where the tribalism finds its way to advance and even override the national identity of South Sudanese, of Nene Genovese. And that's why we just find ourselves still a tribe. We are not nation yet. So thank you so much. I think I have so many points I want to go over it, but I don't think there is a need for it because it looks like the line is big there and I don't want to take it for so long. Thank you.
Shukran, thank you. Rajab, you are blinking. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say a few things, maybe three things very quickly. Number one is that the young nation, after you completed reading the documents, you went on to comment. And one part of the comment you made was about the issue of ethnicity. Some ethnicities were few in the movement and others were many in the movement. And that would translate into an equal contribution of the different ethnicities to the liberation struggle. Now, I have always listened to you, and you present very good argument, intellectual and reference-based argument. However, once you do that, you get into these differences, which I understand is part of the purpose for which the Aparak room was created. As I mentioned earlier, this is a trench of self-defense against other ethnicities that condemn you. So I see where you're coming from in these arguments. Now, here is my take that I would like to encourage. Number one is that when we promote this narrative of ownership or more rights of ownership of the country based on more contribution each one tries to make or claims to make, it brings it is the fundamental cause of ethnic divisions that in most cases never end until the society fragments. And advancing the narratives that seek to magnify the differences rather than the commonalities, the common experiences of the suffering, the oppression from the cartoon-based regimes, the common experiences of the liberation struggle, falling together in the trenches, rising together, carrying one another when you are wounded and so on. When you look at the real SPLA forces, call them SPLA proper, the sense of unity is extremely strong among them because of this experience. And one thing that was interesting about the agreement, the RRCs, was that the SPLA forces, these forces that fragmented and fought themselves, were initially the SPLA forces. And when they came together in the mechanisms of the peace agreement, they were the ones who were very professional, very nationalistic, and they worked together very easily. And that is why partly violence stopped almost immediately when they signed the agreement. You may recall one important signal that I saw. Jokriak, by the time the agreement was signed, was the chief of defense forces. The name used to be chief of staff, general staff. They appeared with James Kwon, who was in Juba representing, was like the acting chief of staff of the SPLA IPO. They appeared somewhere in the bush around Ye or Morobo, in some place, talking to the forces, the two of them. You could see that these were people who were the previous weeks fighting themselves, but as soon as the agreement was signed, comradeship came in. And so, if we are going to promote these differences, we did more, you did less, and all of this, it is going to be a fundamental purpose for divisions that will never end until we fragment like we did with Khartoum. Secondly, this promotion of we did more and you did less is advancing a narrative that is totally contrary to the fundamental theme of this book you just read. Article 3.1.4, if you may refer to it, talks about there are two and only two choices. Either the country breaks up into several independent states, or we agree to establish the new Sudan. And I like it when you read a new Sudan socio-political entity to which we pledge our undivided loyalty and allegiance irrespective of race, tribe, religion, or gender. The new Sudanese commonality that seeks to include rather than exclude. The new Sudan political dispensation that provides equal opportunities for every Sudanese to develop and realize his or her potential. A Sudan where there is justice and equality of opportunity for all. A democratic Sudan in which governance is based on popular will and the rule of law. A new Sudan in which oppression and hegemony by any ethnic group are punished. A Sudan in which all the institutions of social, cultural, and racial hegemony and discrimination are dismantled. If we are going to promote this Sudan, now of course it is South Sudan, defined in this document, we have to rise above some of these. Now, the contribution to the liberation struggle would be proportional to the relative numbers, but also the dynamics that were involved in that during the period of the liberation struggle. As I mentioned earlier, I come from a small community. We made our fair share of the contribution. From my own family, we had several of our boys who fell in different parts of the country. Of course, some of them went very young. This would also justify the claims of the domination of the Northern Sudanese over the Sudan and over us, who were Southern Sudanese at the time, because they were the only ones who were largely involved in the fight or agitation for the independence of the Sudan from the Anglo-Egyptian condominium. They would then justify that the rest of us were not there with them, and therefore they had the right, or absolute right, to dominate the politics and everything in the Sudan, including marginalizing the rest of us. If they had made the Sudan to work as defined in this document, we were probably going to remain as one country. So we do not have to take the path that they took, an advanced narrative that only shed light on the differences and does not promote the common experiences and contributions to the liberation struggle. Now, this is a problem that we also have with some of these liberators. You would find them accusing, for example, what Dr. Majaka Bot called the gun class. This sense of divisions are not only ethnic, they are also this class of people who fell to the court, and it is not on the basis of ethnicity. The gun class applies across the board. And then others would claim when the SPLA was fighting, some people were not in the South. And therefore, you don't have an equal right with me who was in the SPLA. Others would claim, I was there in 1983 and you joined in 1995, and therefore you also don't have equal rights with me. So once we begin to get into those narratives to see who has more rights, we are losing the country. And we would go to what this document prescribes. There are two and only two choices. Either the country breaks up or we establish the new Sudan. Now, the second part I wanted to mention is what General Marialdit talked about. And Marialdit, you are right in terms of construction of national identity. That is missing. Now, the construction of a national identity is a primary function of the state. I'm not so sure where I was reading this, and it explained what Nyerere did. That there was a stark difference between how Nyerere ran the post-independence Tanzania and how Jomo Kenyatta ran the post-independence Kenya, where Kenya became more ethnicized, politically ethnicized, while Tanzania became more politically unified or ethnically unified. In other words, a nation. Now, the national identity solidifies and unifies the different national identities into one national identity around the state, which means the state must function to provide the basis, the foundation around which the different national identities unite to form a common national identity. Now, at the moment the state fails or fails to play that role of building that unified national identity, the national identity collapses. The South Sudanese identity collapses. And therefore, subnational identities emerge to fill the vacuum. This now and the immediate fallback position or next line of defense becomes one's ethnicity. Once you fall from the national identity, the state does not pull the ethnicities together, then you fall back to the next line of defense, which is going to be the ethnicity. Yes.
When Mayanga would say the gun class,
Mm-hmm.
referring to the ruling state, the people that are ruling the country are gun class. He was referring to Malone, he was Southwood of South, and he claimed that he have a PhD. So the rest, like Malone and Salvatore, are not educated, and they are using guns as the power to rule the country. That's why he was referring to those guys that the people that are ruling the country are gun class. They are not knowledge class.
Tonton?
Yeah.
Tonton?
Yeah.
Tonton, I think his description was not just confined to the government official. It includes the opposition. Even Riek Machar is under that categorization, the gun class. Anyone who pick up a gun, fighting.
Yes, I agree with that, and I don't dispute that narrative. It is a broad-based.
No, he said equilibrium. When he said equilibrium means equal. He was saying that because the heart of guy asked him that how can we take the power from him? He said that we need equilibrium arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he referred that he need equilibrium arms, it means that if the tribes are balanced within our army, then the power will be balanced, and the people that have brain can have power to rule the country. But when Majak was a leader for trainers in Congo, he was training other ethnicities that were coming in big groups. And he never said that, let's wait for Equatorians, let's wait for Bari, let's wait for Bajudu. If we are balanced, then we are going to fight. You see, that's where the point of young nations come in. Like, example, the 5 that fell yesterday in the border, those of John Wuchang and those of Simon Karangabui, who call themselves bulldozers, and those of many rebels, many extremist historians, set up the celebratory room, and they were celebrating that the DINKA are killed. And if you go back and ask, why are there 5 things that fell in front of mine? Is it good to think that there are 5 people fell in line of duty? It's very painful. Those parents of the DINKA, they are the one crying, they are the one leaving behind their kids, right? But when they were not killed, when they were saving, it was bet to other tribes that they are the majority in that particular line protecting the country. But when they die, then they are not majority. They are needed now. And then our people fail to calculate that we are represented.
You're taking it very long. I think you can jump in after Raja finish. That would be a good way because it was actually close enough to finish. You can stop there if you don't mind. Let him take back and then you can take it after that. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marialdi. And so you did mention, Marialdi, that the civil society should help organize workshops to try to maybe engage with the citizens and raise their level of consciousness.
To accelerate or to accelerate the the missing point of national identity itself, because some people find they're just sitting there in their home, in their region, they are just nationals, but they're not really.
Yes. Now let me tell you something that you should that may appear a bit strange, Chief Marialdi, that the communities seem to be more aware of the bigger national identity than those of us who are political elites, the educated political class. It is the educated political class who do not have political vision for the country, and therefore they go back to these communities who are very peaceful, who understand the country as their own, and understand the country as belonging to everyone. And if you find them in the communities, they interact freely. Then these politicians go without vision, go to these communities, and then weaponize their ethnicities. Begin to tell them. One good example is when someone is appointed in Cuba, for example, as a minister. They celebrate in Cuba, and then they move their families to the neighboring countries, and life begins to be good. When time comes for some holiday, or if it's a member of parliament at those days when there was money and they wanted to go for recess, they would most likely travel out to spend time with their families. The day a decree comes and they are fired from their positions in Juba, they then remember that they had a village. They then remember that there are people in the village, a tribe in the village. So they go to this community and say, now tell the community that we have been fired from the government. And then you begin to see the community weaponized to fight for this individual. Once you fight and he gets back to power, he begins to go back to Nairobi to spend time with his family. So, with all honesty, when it comes to national duty, the ordinary villagers sacrifice immensely with good understanding of what the nation is. When the national dialogue was organized, people spoke almost on the same issues. Leave alone these controversial ones, the strong positions of people resigning, the president and first vice president. But on matters of the economy, on matters of governance, on matters of social cohesion, the language from the different counties almost are the same. The people in the villages really understand the country very well. They understand nationalism. They even understand peaceful coexistence. They only become problems when we go from the city in our suits to them in the village with no political objective, and we go and weaponize them to fight for us. Now, the last point is, what do we do at this point? We need to build the new Sudan, or the state that is described in this manifesto. That would be our biggest contribution as a generation to the development of South Sudan. One building block that has been laid is this narrative that has been articulated, beautifully articulated by the various generations that contributed to the liberation struggle. Our role is to add to that. And since we have the narrative and we have the country, we have the duty to translate this narrative into action. And that would be a very big contribution. If we promote these narratives of ethnic divisions and all of this, we simply go back to what Khartoum was doing. There was a class, there was a group of those who contributed more to get Sudan independent, and there was the rest of us, and therefore we didn't matter in the governance of the Sudan because we didn't anyway fight or contribute in pushing the Anglo-Egyptian condominium out of the Sudan. So let us embrace one another. This is not a message for the Aparak group alone. This is a message that should be general. At this point, as it stands now, our ship is sinking. The South Sudanese ship is sinking. We are extremely vulnerable to most of our neighbors, and our interests are not guaranteed by any of these neighbors, even if we would see some of them as friends. Our interests are not guaranteed by those neighbors. If they get the opportunity, we would be on the menu, on the dinner table. And so as Israel is doing in the Middle East to survive, we need to build the South Sudanese state, to unify the South Sudanese state, build a military that would protect our sovereignty and the sacrifices made, and give meaning to the sacrifices made, and make the country work for all of us. And on that note, it is important for us to reflect on this. I am aware of these divisions in these different clubhouses, and they should be a source of concern and worry for all of us. I would leave it at this, and thank you.
Rajab, thank you very much. Let me ask you this, because I actually like your reaction to what I said before. Okay. No, I just want to because he made a very important point that I want to say something and ask him briefly. Yes.
Just going to announce something to the marshals here. You guys are on live on Facebook and YouTube by our brother Marin Majak, chairman of South Sudan Eagle Media. So you are live on both channels, Facebook and YouTube. So let us be on our usual.
So how long is that has been going for? Since we start talking?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Field Marshal Jamus, for letting us know, because we were not aware of that. But it's okay, because what we are doing here, we are responding to radicals on social media. So what I want to say, or what I want to direct to Rajab Mahandis, is that he reacted to what I said before. And I don't disagree with him, but I just want to see his reaction also to what I'm going to say. It is true that the more we talk about who contributed what during the liberation struggle in terms of our ethnic groups or even regions or states, the more we are causing division in the country, because everyone would be in the position of defensiveness. That I understand that. But Rajab, why is it a concern if the field marshals, sorry, I'm parked here in the park and my son is playing in the park. My question is, why is it a concern to many people or to some people when the field marshals of Aparak, the youth from Jeng, react back? Because what we are doing here is defensive war. There are people who are saying that DINKA have dominated the government. They have dominated the government. They have excluded others. Okay. To these people, they think they're doing the right thing. But the moment we react back, that what you are saying is not true, because there is difference between DINKA ruling class and DINKA as ordinary people at the grassroots. Okay. Now, why is it a concern that if we say the same thing, that since you are saying that the DINKA have dominated the government and everything happening in the country is their responsibility as a community, why is it not divisive? If we say that the DINKA have actually played a critical role, they have thrown in a lion's share.
Marshal Young Nation, I'm going back. My time is finishing from work. Is it okay?
Okay, go ahead. If you can wait, go ahead.
Yeah. So for that, Marshal the point that I was trying to make, I don't agree with all these notions that DINKA dominate the government of South Sudan. If we are represented based on constituencies that we represent in 10 states, there is no way that you can narrow down the DINKA number in the government. Let's be honest on that. And when we go back to the issue of the liberation,
join the movement based on what he or she doesn't, she didn't like from the northern Sudan treatment, the way the Southerners were treated, and the tone of government was not there in the movement. Why it was not because the manifesto of the SPLM was not seen, right? But the manifesto of the SPLM and the morale of it was looking for the numbers that are coming from the south to be trained to go and fight, and there was nothing needed on that system. And when we came back, we did our country, then the history of those people who fought for that country was like that. You would find people complaining that why the morale of the army are sung in DINKA, and then our Southerners trying to own their history, their struggle, that they should be presented. The estimated thing was trying to be own people, throw the slur word on it, that it should be represent DINKA. So everything was represent and demonized as the DINKA people. And that creates defense from other groups like DINKA and some others. It comes and then I work on our identity. We should appreciate the movement that these people fought for, despite the fact of the tribe that they came from, right of man. And sometimes we argue on good things that it is represented by certain tribes, but when it comes to contribution of the bad side, people get muted, and now people start celebrating. If you are complaining that if one, not you, I'm using that word, if one is complaining or you are complaining that the DINKA are majority in that government, and they were sent, let's say they were sent to war, right? And then you demoralize them by celebrating that I'm glad that the DINKA are still the country, they think they own the country, let them go and spend it. Then you are feeling the sense of identity of our country and the morale of being together when people in that country. You demoralize our army and our sense of integrity, and that put us into mechanism of being defensive, trying to cook and read the book and play the songs to those who we think didn't read the book or were not aware of the SPLM history when we were fighting. People were not aware of that. And if you can see now, based on the rank and then shell, those who fought are still there. There's no way that you can leave them behind. And that's why I think the word SPLM was created just to make sure that you take care of. You cannot protect anyone who fought the SPLM during the movement. That the word SPLM is to identify so that they cannot be left out of the system whereby they can be paid or they can be owned by. And then that term SPLM didn't really review that those who came from Khartoum and the new recruits should not be considered as South Sudan. They will share the same rank, but at least there have to be a way that you can identify those who contributed in the bush long time ago. You shouldn't leave them behind. And I think one of the things that Rangatang created on saying that those who call out for the degree, our degree was I think that's what it don't mean. Because those who were studying in Khartoum were coming and trying to tell them that you are not educated. Bring it home. Let me do it. Go and sit at home. You are not educated. And they are saying, you know what? I fought for this. That's how that sound comes in. I fought for this. You should not come from Khartoum and think that you are educated and you want to take it away from me. That song actually was sung to remind our people. And this is where now they are struggling using defensive mechanisms. So our country is still a good country. And there's nothing that justifies that everything is equal. It is just I heard that gold, ton of gold was discovered somewhere there. That could be the reason why they are moving for the fight. I didn't hear from gold. Khartoum moved the board a long time ago, and then that's why actually it was a part of the movement. Why those of the current actually come out of the government and sell gold of oil and uranium somewhere in the world. And other than that, we should have our identity of the country because we know we have so many tribes. And during the movement, when we were in the city, we celebrate the May 15th. What used to be done was every tribe is informed, prepared the land so that they can represent themselves and people will go to the open field whereby you can see different tribes dancing. And I think it still be practiced now. And people, every Sunday you will see all tribes dancing. Tell other world that these are the people that make up South Sudan. That's how we present our identity within the country. But if we go outside, like our young girls that did Egypt, right? You see them in that uniform, the flag that they are South Sudanese. The uniform that they wear represents the top part of the color of our flag, that we are black people, right? And then you can see the men that wear it. That's how we are representing it. And this is what I was talking earlier, that when we are outside, we have to protect our identity, that we should go anyhow and then use of language of the people. Like now, you would find Somalian know all our tribes, right? And it is us who just go there with a limited mind, divided ourselves, allowing others who are trying to control us and take the piece of our land to identify who we are and what can make us easily fight. And then they can be able to create the war among us. And that is why it's for us who have been in the West, it's very hard to divide the white people because they won't tell you that I'm Irish or German or French, or they will not. They will tell you I'm just white, right? And if you insist of asking, they will say no, I don't know. We don't have, right? The same thing I gave Eritrea and Ethiopia when I was out. People, the Ethiopian guy in Eritrea, they will tell you that I'm rich, right? But they know themselves in Ethiopia, they know that Ethiopia is made up of many tribes. But if you are outside, they will not allow you to know who is Amar and who is Tigray and who is Oromo, right? So they hate that. Why? They're trying to discourage the division that is being encouraged within Indian country, right? So for us, that law of unity and getting rid of tribalism is individual work, it's individual job. Say, hey, I'm a South Sudanese and I like our country. I shouldn't be like practicing or being a Dinka or being a Sholo or being a Bari or being a Mundari. Like some of these Equatorians, sometimes those of Mutang and Bulldozer, they wouldn't accept to tell that I'm a Luko or a Takoda or a Yulu. They will say we are Equatorians, right? We are Equatorians. They like to say because they're trying to be protected now of their identity. That do not come and fit among the Equatorian tribe and be able to know what is inside their country. This country now, right? Everybody should be presented, right? Based on giving them the term, and then we correct our law so that the law deals with corruption, and then we target something that divides us. Like something that are used in South Sudan now, they can take you to jail here in America, right? Like the word nigger, you can hear it nigger, right? A white person here shying to tell the black that you are nigger. Because the law says that you can sue that person, right? Certain things that divide us should be intimidated. Like when we were in the book, the SPLM was using the word commerce, and it was illegal to just go there and call someone by tribe that you are Nuer or you are Dinka, you are Shok. You have to say comrade. If you are together in Basila, in Jamang, the word comrade was the one that the SPLM was using to call themselves, right? And they were discouraging all these levels and tribal, right? But now that thing doesn't exist, right? It is dying out. You believe that the other members still call themselves comrades? Yeah, they know they still practice it, but it is dying out. But who should do? You know, everybody in that movement during the time of war, it was individual who call you comrade to make sure you are his comrade or her comrade. You call you based on your tribe identity or your ethnic name, you know. And that's why we were loving each other and we were together at that time.
No, that was not individual one. That was a doctrine, a real doctrine. A doctrine that was actually, it was a doctrine. That's why everyone was using it, comrade.
Right, but we were indoctrinated when we come in from the villages. We were trained that this is the language you should use. We were told that this is the language you should use, right? That you cannot say this is where this is what. You will be divided into Brazil and then you will fight. So that's why we were told that your Nuer guy, whom you are with together in the Ajama or the Batila, is your common. And the only language you can call that person is common. And if you violate that, then we will pay you 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, because it was a discouraging of that division. Thing that can bring division among us. That was the reason why the manifesto was using. But now, when those troops were trained and released to fight, right? John Garang or Salva Kiir was not following them to wipe them, implementing that word from. After you are told this is what we should do, you can go and fight in Barkazal using that word, call your friend, right? And that's why I said it is individual work to protect the country. Because in the United States here, they say protect levels. You know, if you are found doing something by an American citizen that is damaging the country, they will report you to their police. It's protecting their identity, their integrity, right? Anything that is given to you as a job of the country, the uniform, you should protect that because it is the integrity of our country. Flag is our integrity. The military uniform is our integrity. Police uniform is our integrity. And sometimes I have seen some South Sudanese using the uniform of police to dance in their tribe identity, and that should be discouraged because if you're a police, you should go home and change your clothes and then go and dance your traditional dance. You know, when we comment on 9 years, sometimes some people attack you and say you don't know anything. You are still in the US and you don't know anything. But we fail to protect things that integrated us and keep us protected, right? Then we go and attack our armies and then they let them go, let them die, and then we demoralize them, dying for that country. My last thing, all of us should know that every inch of our border that is being taken by any other country to stay in the history so that when we get power, we have to claim those things. It is my mind.
You can take it back, young nation, if you are there.
No, what has for how you go?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Contact, Field Marshal, for your contribution. Now, let us be considerate of others. Field Marshal Tonanyuag is with us. This chance will go straight to him. Tonanyuag, are you with us? Are you closer to your mic?
Field Marshal, I'm available, but I would really like to listen to all of them. Let me get relaxed.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Rajab, you want to say something or you are okay now?
No. You were asking Rajab a question earlier. I want to have then after that, I'm going to go. Maybe just one comment. I'm not sure if Tontat is still around, but Tontat, I agree with you in the indoctrination of the SPLA recruits to consider themselves as one, as unified in the army, and as comrades. The word comrade was a general word common throughout the liberated areas. And I personally grew up in the liberated areas. And in the liberated areas,
training was partly compulsory. So as school children, we were trained. And comrades,